Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Brenton Balvin here. It's the Autumn Transport Podcast. It's another Monday night, August 26th. And if it looks like I am a sweaty mess, that's because I am. Typically, I know I told you guys a lot of the nights we do this, I rush straight home from the gym and try to get a shower in. And I'm still sweating, still exhausted from my workout. But today it's doubly bad because up here in Minnesota, it's 91 degrees and it feels like 150. I swear the humidity and the heat are just nasty. We got some thunderstorm warnings up here tonight, and I live on the third level of a little apartment building. And so all the heat goes up, up, up. The apartment building was built by settlers making their way across for the Oregon Trail. So I think it's that old. And so I have no air conditioning, just a little window unit. And the podcast room here is my spare bedroom. So that has zero air and a ring light on my face. And it's hot as all get out in here. But we're going to push through. I got a great guest here tonight. I'm going to bring him up and welcome him to the podcast. Sam Watts. How you doing, Sam?
I am exactly the same as you. We are in different states, but down here in Illinois, where I'm at, same weather. And I decided to come outside because I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. And but it's such a nice night, but it's hot. But it's like I know in 6 weeks, like it's not going to be this way. So I try to take advantage of the days, even though it's a little warm. But now with the shade and the coolness coming, it'll get a little bit better. But yeah, no, I don't envy your situation at all, being on the third floor like that. That would be hot.
Yeah, it's great in the wintertime because I hardly have to run on my heat. But so my electric bill is pretty cheap in the wintertime, but in the summertime, it's not so fun when all that heat rises and you just sweat up here. So excuse me if I look a little bit sweaty. Also, typically I wear a hat, but just got the haircut and want to show that off. We had a fun night last night, Sam, with our peeps from the office. We went to a Minnesota Twins game and wanted to show you. A lot of our listeners, Sam, have heard this before, but I'm the son of a truck driver. And my dad actually worked for Autumn, and he was able to come with us to the game last night, which was pretty cool. I got a picture I wanted to share because a lot of people maybe haven't seen my dad, but that's him. His name's Craig. He drove for Autumn Transport for many years before I came on board. And so I had a chance to invite, it was a +1 event. So I called my dad and I asked him to be my +1 for the night. And he said, sure, I'll come. And can we bring all your nephews and your brothers as well? I said, well, Dad, I don't think you really know what +1 means. So we got that squared away and he came and had a blast. It was just really fun to have him come. So wanted to share him with everybody. I heard a little bit about your background, Sam. People are probably wondering who's Sam? Who's Sam Watts?
I wonder that myself sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you stand in front of the mirror as you get older and you don't even recognize the guy there anymore.
Yep.
But I started following you, some of your content and listening. You do a podcast and started watching that, listening to that through LinkedIn, probably maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and started seeing this guy, Sam Watts, popping up on there and kind of have a fun mix of some funny content, some sarcasm, some mixing trucking and safety in a way that is more accessible and personable than you see a lot of times of the other stuff people puts online. So I got curious about who you were and started listening to your content that you put out and saw you on a couple other podcasts. And it was like, man, before this guy is big as Jay Leno, I need to get him on the Autumn Transport podcast. Pretty soon I'll have to book you through your agent.
Yeah, so exactly.
Why don't you go ahead, though, and introduce yourself a little bit? What is your background? Who are you?
Well, so my background is probably kind of similar to yours. I grew up in the trucking industry. My dad was a trucker. And when I was born in the early 80s, not to age myself, but in the early 80s, that's when he got off the road. My mom said, hey, you're not going to leave me home. Because I got an older sister. She's like, you're not going to leave me home with 2 kids. So he decided to make the jump and go into dispatch, and then just kind of worked his way up from there. So, I mean, dispatcher, customer service, all the way up to, he got to VP of companies and general managers, you know, that position. And the whole time, like, I just kind of went along for the ride. I mean, we just were a trucking family. My wife still makes fun of me to this day because anytime we're on an interstate system or anywhere, I'm looking at every semi truck that I pass. And I love it. And that's, you know, that's how I know Autumn. And, you know, it's funny with the Minnesota Twins, because I was actually born in Minnesota, and I lived in Minnesota for about 20 years.
Okay.
I'm a huge Twins fan. That's my team. I like the Vikings, even though they're going to disappoint me this year, but we've kind of come to accept that as Vikings.
Yeah, we're used to that.
So, but this year is going to be different because the other teams are going to be pretty good, and now our new quarterback's out and whatever. So, but yeah, so I mean, I love the trucking industry. Like I said, I've been a part of it my whole life. There was a brief moment where I kind of escaped, but it pulls you back in, and it's one of those, like, it's just so and I'm sure all the industries are like this. I just have never really been in another one, but there's just so much knowledge in the trucking industry that doesn't go with anything else. Like, if you say the word deadhead to someone who's not in the trucking industry, they'll probably think either you're a Grateful Dead fan or they have no clue what you're talking about. So it's like, all this knowledge and information has just been my youth, my growing up. Like, I might as well stay in the industry and see what I can do in that. And so, so I've been in trucking for years, and now I do safety for a mid-sized trucking company. And that's kind of an interesting role because not a lot of people do safety. It's just not really something that's widely known. A lot of people have a general idea of it. And if you're kind of like me, before I really got into safety, I knew enough of how to get around the regulations, but I didn't necessarily know why they were in place and what exactly can you do. You know, it's like, yeah, just PC somewhere, you know. What, I didn't know what PC was, you know. I mean, I knew it was a way to not go on drive, but we were using it horribly wrong, you know, as a lot of people are. That's obviously one of my biggest things I deal with in safety is personal conveyance, just because a lot of drivers think they know how to use it, and they use it in ways that they think is right. And then I got to be Captain, you know, Buzzkill over here and say, hey, you didn't do that one quite right there, my friend. But I try to come at it with a point of view of, like, I'm here to help you guys. Okay. I'm not just the guy that is checking things off. You messed up today, you know, and you just kind of go that route. But I'm saying, this is why it's important to follow this stuff. This is because if you don't, you know, this could happen, and eventually it could really snowball into something that nobody really wants. It usually ends up with fines and points against your CSA and possibly losing your CDL. No one wants that. So I try to come at it with, I'm here to help you guys out. And I think a lot of that comes from my background in operations with trucking company. A lot of safety guys have a legal background, which is perfectly fine. You know, there's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo that gets confusing, and they dissect that stuff, and it's great. I got a lot of good friends in safety that have a more legal mindset, and I kind of lean on them for some things. But I come from operations. You know, I started as a dispatcher, and I did a bunch of other stuff like that. And so I always kind of had that mind of, like, how can I help this driver do what he wants to do? Because a lot of times that's what they want, you know, but it seems like there's some people out there that just say, that just say, no, you can't do that. And that's it. It's like, okay, you want to do this. Let's see if we can figure out just exactly how to do that. So let's look at your hours, see if we can do a split somewhere. Let's, you know, that's when things kind of get creative. That's when I think it gets kind of fun, is kind of trying to figure out, knowing the rules and how to apply them so that you can do everything legally, safely, and get what you want. And if we can make that happen, yay, rah, rah.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. And it is something I've been at my company dispatching for 11 years and have seen a few different safety people come and go. And one of the things that I love about our safety director now, Chris, he's a former driver.
Sure.
And so he knows what it's like to be out on the road. He knows what the drivers are going through. And so he really brings that same mindset to the table as well. That's what you were sharing there, not about busting guys and breaking down everything they're doing wrong and hollering at them all the time, but trying to figure out what can I do to work with you and to help you and to help you succeed. Got a few of our guys here that are listening tonight. Hey guys, how you doing? If you guys have a question for Sam or a comment, go ahead, leave it post it in the comments. Say, Chuck, how you doing? And we'll ask Sam. Maybe you're afraid to ask your own safety director something, and so you want to get Sam's take on it. I don't know.
We did that on a previous podcast where they opened it up, and the first question was like about hot shots, and I'm like, guys, I don't know nothing about hot shots. Okay, I'm over the road. I've done reefer, I've done tanker, I've done dry van, but it's like the first question that I gave was hot shot. I'm like, good luck. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I was watching that one too. That was pretty funny. You mentioned deadhead as kind of an insider term. I can add one more. So you said, a deadhead in trucking, you got the deadheads, Grateful Dead fans.
Yep.
When I was in high school, I worked at a greenhouse, and one of the jobs somebody had to do would be to go up and down the rows of flowers and deadhead the petunias. So basically we'd walk up hundreds of petunia hanging baskets and just pull off any of the little dead flower petals that were on there before they moved them down to the store. So there's a third definition of deadhead there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's
you can. You looks like a beautiful background. You must have some plants. You could impress your wife when she gets home tonight.
Yeah.
She says, what were you doing all night, Sam? Oh, I was deadheading your flowers, babe.
Deadheading flowers. That's exact. And then she'd be like, no, you weren't. I'm like, I don't even know where your flowers are. Yeah, we've got, we are extremely blessed in that we have a farmhouse that we live on down here in Illinois. And so, yeah, I've got 2 acres myself. And then we've got my in-laws own the rest of everything around us. So, but we do have a great garden over there. My wife does great. It wasn't so hot this year because we had bunnies and, so we had the bunnies were kind of a nuisance. Usually it's the deer, but this year is the bunnies. Yeah. So, next.
Serendipitous for me then, because I've never hunted deer in Illinois, and now I have a hookup to some farmland down there.
I've got, in fact, like directly behind me by about 1,000 yards, I took a 7-pointer 2 years ago. So, yeah,
nice.
There's deer around here, and they're plentiful. So hopefully, I didn't get anything last year, but I missed opener, so I had to go out second weekend, and we live like at the end is a nature preserve. So okay. I think once the deer hear that first gunshot, they take off, and
they learn to hide.
So, yeah, you got to get them on opener.
Yeah. So one of the things I saw that kind of brings us together, Sam, is that, you being from Minnesota, you went to Northwestern University. Mm-hmm. I'm a Bethel guy. And for those of you who don't know, yikes. Bethel, Chuck says, way to invite yourself down for some hunting. That's right, Chuck. That's what I do. Come on
down. I got spare
that.
Come on down.
But Bethel and Northwestern, we're basically share the road together. We're both off of Snelling Avenue. Mm-hmm. When were you at Northwestern?
So I was there from 2002 to 2004. I went 2 years there. And that's when I briefly kind of escaped. I was going into broadcasting. I was going to be the next Steven Spielberg. Well, that was incredibly difficult to do. That man is very talented. And basically
he's made a movie.
Yeah, he's done okay for himself. But
done okay for himself.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And so that's when I kind of like, this isn't quite the path, because the professor said, hey, you guys are going to get into TV news, really, and there's more than likely a good chance that your entry-level jobs are going to be taken by robots. So he actually kind of talked me out of doing it. So then I was like, all right, well, let's get back into trucking then. At least I know that deal. But yeah, so when I was there, though, it was Northwestern College. But now they've grown to the University of Northwestern St. Paul, and I barely recognize campus anymore. I haven't been there in years, but
when I started at Bethel, it was Bethel College, and I was there. So I was there from 98 to 2002. So I was finishing right as you were coming in, but just missed each other.
Yeah.
But Bethel made the flip to the university too. Got to put the big U on your name. I always thought it was way cooler to say I went to BC than BU. But that's because I'm a hockey player and I was a Boston College fan.
Yeah.
So wearing the BC I thought was cooler than the BU.
Yeah, I don't have any Northwestern apparel. It was a fine college. I'm not knocking it. It just wasn't for me. So it was good for a lot of people, and it's still good for a lot of people. But college in general just wasn't for me. So
Where in Minnesota did you grow up?
So I was actually born in a town called Hutchinson, Minnesota,
Yep.
just west of town there. In fact, I'm going to be out there this weekend because my great aunt Pearl just recently passed away, like yesterday. She
Oh man.
passed away. She was 97 years old, which is incredible. Up until just a couple of years, she was living on her own, doing her own thing. But she just recently passed away. So I'm headed back out to Hutchinson this weekend for the celebration of life, and just a fantastic woman. And so I was born in Hutch, but I didn't live there very long. We moved around. Like when I said my dad was in trucking, every time he took a new position, it was a promotion. So I mean, I lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Actually, I lived in Mondovi, Wisconsin. Martin Transport. People probably will know that company.
Yeah, we know Martin.
I lived in Mondovi. Yeah, it's they were smaller when we were there, and then they blew up. I lived in Waupaca, Wisconsin. Then we moved to Indiana, down to Muncie, Indiana, where my dad worked for Burlington Motor Carriers, which is not there anymore. But then we came over to Illinois when I was in middle school and high school. Graduated high school out of Illinois, just 15 miles on the road. And then after that, I went up to Northwestern, stayed in Minnesota for about 20 years. And in that time, I lived in Prior Lake, and I lived in Anoka. So
Nice.
Metro.
Right. I grew up in Maple Grove.
Okay.
And moved up to Monticello for a few years, and have lived down in a town called Northfield for like the last 18 years or so.
My sister and brother-in-law live just outside of Northfield.
Really?
Yep.
Such a small world. What are they, in Randolph or?
So their kids go to Randolph. Yep.
Okay.
But he's a farmer. Actually, he owns a landscape or a tree trimming business. And
don't tell me they're the Feldmans.
The Feldmans?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this a good or a bad thing?
I love it. No, what, your sister is John's wife?
Yeah.
Allie?
Yeah, that's my sister.
You've got to be kidding me.
Wow, small world.
How
do you know that?
I love the Feldmans.
Let's not go that far. Okay.
So yeah, they're I used to go to church with John and Allie for quite a while.
Oh, really?
Yep. And Allie has cut all my kids' hair, and we did Bible study group at their house, and John's taking down trees for me and my friends.
Sure.
So, and now Allie Watts. I know the last name.
Yeah. Was that a Canvas? Did you go to Canvas with them?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
We were with them at Canvas.
All right.
Wow, what a
Canvas guy. Yeah.
What's that? I look like a Canvas guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's a crazy small world. Super cool. Well,
that's my brother.
Moving beyond the coolness of all that, we should talk a little bit about the coolness of trucking. And what's it been like for you to make that journey into safety? Do you see yourself staying there for a while? Do you want to get back to operations? Kind of how do you feel about things? No,
I love safety. I really do. It just because you kind of get to understand all the worlds. Operations is fine. And excuse my dog, he's running around with something in his mouth and making commotion. But hey, you gotta knock that off. I'm on a podcast. Okay.
Hopefully it's that bunny.
But yeah, no, I love. It's oh man, I wish. No, he's got some chew toy or something. But he's like, why are we outside? It's hot out here. But anyways, I love safety. I really do. It's just such an interesting atmosphere. Like it's a nice thing about trucking. Just every day is different in trucking. You never know what you're going to face. Usually it's not good, but but I like safety because I like figuring out that stuff. I like figuring out how to make drivers successful. And honestly, a safe driver is a successful driver, and I can prove that 75, but you're going to make it on time delivery, and you don't have to watch out for cops, and you don't have to worry about fines because they're speeding. And that's a whole long tangent. But no, I do like safety. I like working with operations, and I like working and figuring out how their guys get there. But safety is such a niche little, piece in the trucking in the trucking world. And I do like it. And it's kind of funny because I would have never thought safety would have been in my wheelhouse. I thought it was going to be, live and die operations, because safety, there's a lot of attention to detail. And if you know me, and this is still something that I'm working on, I'm not a very detail oriented guy. I like to be big picture type stuff, but safety kind of forces me into really kind of keeping an eye on the details. And that's, good for just everything in life. Because like I said, I was usually up here for everything. Now safety's kind of brought me back down here to make sure I'm just, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So safety is a great realm, and every trucking company needs a safety guy. And that's one thing that I try to preach to a lot of people is it doesn't matter if you're 5,000 trucks or if you're one truck. FMCSA will look at everybody. And especially if you get into an accident or something like that, FMCSA is going to look at you, and you better kind of have all your stuff in order. You have a driver qualification files better be in order. You better have your inspections, your DOT inspections, all that kind of stuff. If you got a roadside inspection with a vehicle maintenance issue, you better have the receipt to show that you fixed it. I mean, there's all these little things that, as an operations guy, I never really cared about. But then once you get into safety, you go, holy cow, there's a lot of stuff here that you really should pay attention to, which a lot of operations people don't. And I'm not knocking operations people, but, it's just something that they just don't know. It's kind of one of those, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's where I like to come in and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is why we do it. And then once we get this done, then we can be, we don't have to look over our shoulder going, I hope we don't get caught doing this. It's like, I'd rather just run something above board and, face the challenges head on.
Yeah. It's a good way to live when you're above board and you're doing things the right way. And you're not looking over your shoulder, trying to hide anything.
Exactly.
Living in the light, right? That is the way to do it.
Was that an old school DC Talk reference right there? Holy cow.
Totally busted me. So we had a situation over the weekend where we had a driver who got pulled in, got inspected, and he had a tire that was all out of whack. And DOT said you need to get that thing fixed. They actually let him go, but they told him you need to take that right away. You need to get it fixed. You can't pull another load until that's fixed. And our safety director came down to dispatch today and wanted to talk to us about it, find out what happened, what the plan was. And we had somebody going out to repair the tire on site. And he said, as soon as that happens, I need that receipt, just like you said, Sam. He's like, I need to send that in, show that we took care of it. And to your point, I never would have thought. I'm thinking fix the tire, get to the next load, keep them rolling.
And we're thinking as safety guys, we got to close that loop. That's right. The terminology. We had this issue. We need to show that we fixed it and close that loop to show that, hey, we're good. Yep. Your safety guy is exactly right.
I think it's so important to have a strong working relationship between your dispatchers and your safety people. And to know that you're both on the same team. At the end of the day, we both do want the same goals. We want our owner operators, our driver partners. Here at Autumn, we're all independent contractors. Okay. So we have, I think 145, 150 drivers who contract with us, pull our trailers. And at the end of the day, we want them to be successful, as successful as they can be, and safe to get home to their families and to make sure everybody else on the roadway gets home to theirs. And so, my part of that is keeping them rolling, trying to get them paid, and safety is working with us to make sure that everybody gets home where they need to be.
Yep. And that's exactly it. Like I said with safety, a safe driver, or, a good driver is a safe driver. I mean, and a safe driver is a successful driver, and just things like that, getting to and from the shipping and receivers, or shippers and receivers, on time in a safe manner. I mean, if you really want to talk about a delay and screwing up your entire week, get pulled into a scale and get shut down for 10 hours because you did something wrong, or get into an accident where you're at fault. That is going to ruin any sort of time that you had banked up for something. So that's why I would say just mind your P's and Q's, do exactly what you're supposed to do, and you will be more successful if you do that, because now you're not shortcutting any vehicle maintenance stuff. You're not, rushing through any pre-trip stuff, and you're being careful while you drive. Now, there are times when accidents happen to you, and that does slow you up a little bit. But I have found out, unless it's, catastrophic, if you're not at fault, they usually get the information, you do a couple things, and then you can be on your way. So, but if you're at fault, you're in trouble. They're going to throw the book
Right.
at you, which they should. If you're acting irresponsibly and driving bad, you should get the book thrown at you. That's what the book is there for. So,
Right. And you're a massive vehicle out there on the road. You pack more punch than somebody else out there. You have a responsibility to be more careful just because of what, it's like I've two boys and a daughter, and my older boy has always been a bigger guy. He was just taller when he was born. He was off the chart for length and weight, and he's always been bigger. And my younger guy was always at the other end. He was always tiny, but they're only 3.5 years apart.
Okay.
So when they would wrestle, or they would, one of them would get mad at the other one. When my older boy Jake would punch his brother or put him in a squeeze or something, he'd hurt him just because he was bigger.
Yep.
Not even necessarily that he wanted to. And so I was always telling him, Jake, you can't punch like that because you're a lot bigger than Andrew. And even if you're not trying to, you're going to hurt him more than he's going to hurt you.
Yep.
And the same thing goes for our owner operators and the truck drivers out there on the roads. You're bigger. You're the bigger brother. And so you have to pay attention and watch out for your little brothers and sisters in those four-wheelers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's 100% true. I mean, I've got dash cam video of one of our guys getting T-boned by a car, and it bent the rim on one of the drive axles, but the car was totaled, and then we've got video of one of our trucks hitting a car. I mean, the truck usually, unless it's some, big crash, the truck usually is okay. We can usually drive away from most accidents we get into, but the cars typically cannot. So that's why I always preach to the guys, like, you got to be careful. And I've heard lawyers say that you're not supposed to say this, but I always kind of end up saying it, that you are the professional driver. And so you're the one, you're not necessarily better than the others, but you're the one that has more miles under your belt. You're the one that should maybe anticipate other drivers' reactions or moves that they're going to do, because you do have, some of my guys, I joke around, you got more miles in reverse than I will ever have in forward. You've just been on the road too long. So that's one thing that I try to get across to them, is that, anticipate what these car drivers are doing, because I don't know if you've been on the interstate lately, but people seem to be just absolutely terrible drivers anymore. I don't know what's going on, but I've seen so much dash cam of just drivers, stopping on the interstate, and in fact, the one I had the other day, one of our guys was going, and it said, I got a little thing on my thing said near collision. And I'm like, what could possibly be going on? There's nobody in front of him. Like, where's this near collision? And then all of a sudden I see in the distance a car on the interstate system is driving in his lane, going the wrong way on the end. Like, how do you even make that mistake? I mean, it's mind-boggling. So I always tell the guys, like, you got to be so defensive out there now, because I can't trust people in cars almost anymore.
Yeah, we had an incident, a near incident last week. If it wasn't for a great defensive driving move by one of our partners, we had the dash cam. Yeah, this is a great thing here. One of our drivers says, always try and leave yourself an out.
Yep.
Exactly, Paul. That's a great piece of advice. One of our drivers was going, you could see his dash cam. He was doing the speed limit, and he was doing 58 miles an hour. And there was a car entering the interstate, trying to turn left onto the interstate, and this minivan turns right in front of him. And he hit, he slowed down appropriately and moved his rig over to the side, but you can only think he was milliseconds away from just demolishing that van. And you wonder, like, what in the world were they thinking? Well, clearly they weren't. Well, they weren't paying attention.
The van probably didn't even know, like, how much danger they were in. Like, I can almost guarantee you that's one thing. It just seems like people have become so oblivious to their surroundings anymore. I mean, just even when I'm in a vehicle, driving my pickup truck down the road, it just seems like nobody understands that anybody else is out on the road with them. And so I love that. Leave yourself an out. So every week I make a safety video for my driver. So I send it out every week. I make a safety update, and we'll talk about things, and then we'll watch a dash cam video and kind of go over what happened, whether it's our fault, the other person's fault, whatever. And that's one of the things I constantly preach. In the dash cams, if I see a guy in the middle lane, I'm always saying, like, make sure you understand your surroundings, because a lot of times in these dash cams, it's a lane of traffic slams on the brakes, and all of a sudden you got to do a very evasive maneuver to not, crush 5 cars in front of you, because cars have absolutely no clue how much time it takes for a semi to stop. And like I said, they probably don't even know a semi truck's behind them. So, they're just slamming on the brakes, and I've seen so many of our guys like have to do those maneuvers around, and thank God that they, don't hit anybody. But yeah, you always got to leave yourself an out, because it's just, you just never know when that one guy's gonna be like, oh, I missed my exit, and he slams on his brakes and tries to turn. I say that because I've seen it. So like, people do that out there. It's ridiculous.
How have your guys responded to those videos that you're creating? I'd heard you say in another podcast that you were doing that. I thought it was a pretty cool way to get information out. We have, like I said, we have 150 drivers, and it's impossible. We'll never be able to get all 150 guys in a room so that we can have a safety meeting. It's not like we're a company where it's company drivers and everyone's back to the terminal at the end of the day. And so you can do a little 30-minute. We're all over the country, nationwide. Right now, California, from California to New York, we have a guy in British Columbia, and we got guys down in Florida. So how has that worked for you in terms of communicating with your drivers through like that video teaching?
It's been absolutely fantastic. I wish I would have thought of it sooner, to be honest with you. It's one of those where I kind of had the idea for a while. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if any driver wants to watch that. And now I've done, what was I just up to? Like 45? I think I've done 45 of them. Every week I put them, there's a couple weeks I've missed in there, but every week I do a safety update. And it gets to the point too, where if I don't put one out, then the drivers will like start texting me and say, hey, is this a way of telling me that I'm fired because I didn't get a video this week? No. I didn't put one out, So it's gotten to the point where they kind of they really enjoy watching them, and I just throw them out on YouTube. I know there's probably something that you could put out so that they can't fast forward it; they have to watch it, But I just say, guys, look, you're busy. When you get a chance, watch it. And right now I'm watching about 200 drivers, and my videos, they'll get 180, 200 views. So, I mean, I still haven't figured out exactly what makes one better than the other, but like some I'll get like 400 views on it and stuff like that. So I'm like, they're watching them. Okay. They're watching them, and I'm getting feedback. I always have my contact information at the bottom of them, and guys will give feedback. And that's what I want. I want these guys to start talking, because it's like, we don't show the big crash dash cams that you can see on YouTube. It's stuff from our trucks. And it's like, guys, this is what our guys have seen out there. It's not the crazy whatever. It's here's this car cutting us off. That what would you do in that situation? And that's what I just try to get them to think about. It's like, here's the situation. What would you do? And then the first like 5 minutes of it is me just kind of giving some updates, or like we have an hours of service issue with a couple guys. So it's just kind of a reminder, like, hey, make sure you're doing hours of service. And this is what you need to do for that. So it's just a really nice little touch points, because like you said too, we're never going to get all of our drivers in one spot at one time. It's just, it's not going to happen. You would be even harder, because if you've got all owner operators, those guys don't want to sit. That time is money to them, man. They got to get moving.
Exactly.
Whereas other guys are like, yeah, okay, I'll take a day off, maybe, whatever. But no, so that was kind of my solution. Like I said, I had that broadcast background, so I'm fairly comfortable in front of cameras and no audio stuff and lighting and all that. I even brought a light out here because I knew it was going to get dark soon. So that's why you can see
it looks good.
Yeah. Works fantastic. Warm, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, so it works so good with those guys, because like I can get information out that I need to. It goes out once a week. They know it's to expect it on Monday mornings, and they've been really responsive to it, which has been really nice. A lot of guys will call, text me, all that stuff, and just say, "This is what I would do." I'm like, "Cool. No, that's a good dialogue. That's what I wanted to do as a safety guy. Just get you guys thinking. That's all."
Yeah. That's part of the reason why we started the Autumn Transport podcast. Originally, it was all just on Spotify, and we would just do audio recordings. And recently this summer, we've moved on to this format where we're broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube for our guys. And the hope really is that it would be a way for them to engage with one another, with me, we have our safety director last week. Chris was on, and we spent 45 minutes talking about the CVSA brake safety blitz that's happening now.
Yep.
And for those guys who are listening, that's live. So make sure that you got your brakes all up to date and everything else on your truck, because they're not just looking at brakes, but they're specifically looking at brakes.
Right.
But yeah, that's a big push behind this, is to give guys, sometimes I'll interview current owner operators that are without them just to get to know them, share their story. If there's anything truckers like to talk about, it's trucking and, other truckers.
Yep.
So they tune in for that. But then as a way to get information out, in today's culture, I guess you could say, that people aren't sitting and reading long emails. They're not reading safety blog posts.
Right.
They want videos. They want to sit and flip through Instagram and maybe watch a reel, but maybe engage with this and have some content like this that they can sit at a truck stop or wherever they're parked for the night and listen to an interview or a conversation like this. So video, I think, is really a good way to go, and it sounds like it's working pretty well for you.
Yeah, 100%. Video, it's funny. You said we met up on LinkedIn or whatever. Like, I don't even read long LinkedIn posts anymore. If your LinkedIn post is over a paragraph, it better be pretty engaging.
It better be pretty good.
Yeah. But video.
Did you see the click through to see the picture of the dog today?
I don't think so.
There was some marketer, and he said there's a really cute picture of a dog, but the face was blurred out, so you had to click through like 35 slides in order to see the dog's face.
Yeah, no, I didn't see
that. And then he's basically like, gotcha, like I suckered you into spending 3 minutes clicking through this.
Yeah, and he got like a lot of points in the algorithm, I'm sure, doing something like that, because all those clicks and whatnot. Yeah, and that's one of my love-hate things with any sort of social media thing. It's like, I don't like social media, but it's kind of necessary, and I can never figure out the algorithm. So I just post what I want to, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, it's always tomorrow, So, but I found that if I really concentrate on talking about safety and what people really need to hear about it, mixed in with a little humor, and I love the thing you put in there, sarcasm too, because that is me 100%. I am a sarcastic dude. So everything, all my humor is going to have a little sarcasm behind it. And my wife just can't figure that out, which,
most women can't.
Yeah, I know. Like, for the longest time, she's like, do you actually like me? I'm like, no, I love you. She's like, well, you kind of saying some things. I'm like, so I've learned to back off from her. Like, I'm not sarcastic around her. That was, teenage Sam back then, because we met in high school sweetheart. So
nice. Very nice.
It is nice because, we've grown up together. In fact, we just made the comment, like, we've known each other. We've known each other longer than we haven't known each other, So it's, when you kind of hit that realization, it's like, oh my word, that's a time. And how old am I? Cripe. But I'm 40. If anyone wants to know. Yeah.
Speaking of people not being able to tell your sarcasm, there's something in my voice where it's not sarcasm, but many times people can't tell if I'm being serious or not.
Sure.
Well, they're like, oh, is he being serious? Is he not being? Is this for real?
Yep.
And some good friends of ours years ago, they gave me a pair of mittens for Christmas, some handmade mittens. And inside one palm was the word serious, and the other one said not serious. And they said, every time you come over, you have to wear these and just hold up a hand. Are you being serious or not serious?
I like it. Yeah. No, I've got a good friend down here who, same as you, like, his sense of humor is just very dry. And so we were actually coaching we have two boys in the same class, and we were coaching their basketball team. And he texted me, or he called me and said, hey, we got that coaches meeting tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know anything about it. And he's like, yeah, we're going to make sure you bring extra treats. And I forget what else he said, but I thought he's sarcastic. And then like 9 o'clock the next morning, he's calling me like, where are you? I was like, oh, we actually do have a coaches meeting. Oh, so I'm running out the door to get it to it. But it's like, I'm like, I didn't know that you were, because sometimes sarcasm and dry humor don't talk to each other. They're just similar to understand, but yet, like, when I'm sarcastic about something, it kind of gets a little obvious. But dry humor, they don't really let on that they're, that they're.
Yeah, that's
being
kind of the point sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so I got to be careful when I'm talking. I don't do a ton of direct dispatching any longer, but when I do talk to guys, I kind of got to be careful that I'm not. It's fun to kind of play, and tell them, well, yeah, I got this load. I need you to do it. I don't got anybody else to do it. And, so they're like, oh, okay. And then, no, I was just kidding. I'm just kidding. Got to do that. But
I was on a podcast with, it's called the Trailer Trash Podcast. I don't know if you ever heard of it. They're actually out of Clearwater, Minnesota. And I went up there and I did an episode with them, and I made a comment about hours of service. And I said, yeah, when the whole Chevron thing came down, we just told all of our guys to throw the e-logs out the window and just go back to paper. And like all three of them just kind of stared at me for a second.
I saw that clip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joke. Oh, okay.
They were like, wait, the safety guy? Just
yeah, I don't think you can say that. No, you probably shouldn't if that's
you had all three of them on the hook right there. That was that. I did watch that. I hadn't heard of the podcast until I saw your clip. I sent them a message actually and told them they need to get their YouTube stuff going.
I told them the same thing. I said the same thing. That's, but and I'll say, I love the podcast. It is very unfiltered. It's very original. So that's why I always like to give the disclaimer, and they like it too. But it's a fun one to listen to. But
it was not produced on campus at Bethel or Northwestern. I'll tell you that much.
Don't tell the Northwestern people I was on it. Yeah.
And they need Trailer Trash Girls. If you're listening, you do have to do something about your algorithm too, because hate to say it, but there's a much more popular podcast called the Trailer Trash Podcast that makes yours a little bit more difficult to find.
Is there really? Oh, I didn't even know there's another one out there like that. I'm guessing, is that more like a trailer park type stuff though?
I think so.
Okay, so that's the fucking I could see how maybe that would court, but I didn't know there was another one called that. So.
Yeah, so I was trying to find your video on there because you had posted the video,
right? I took videos there, yeah.
But I thought maybe it's on YouTube, so I started searching Trailer Trash Podcast on YouTube, and whatever. Nobody else cares about that but you and me. So well, I'll send them a message.
Do that.
So Sam? I don't want to keep you all night here, but from a safety perspective, I think guys could start to think, oh, my safety director, he's always talking about X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. And maybe they think that that's just, the bee in his bonnet, so to speak, but it's not really a big deal. So maybe you can say, what are some of the things that are a big deal as you view safety in trucking? Things I know I heard you talk on another podcast about speeding. I think that was the Logistics Lounge one. And you talked for a while. You all talked about speeding and how dangerous and dumb it is. And we just did a podcast on speed gauge. I don't know if you've heard of speed gauge.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. We've been using that at Autumn for the last few months and seen some really good results for bringing speed down. But, as you're talking to your guys, what are, just share a couple of the hot button issues that you're talking about and trying to get your drivers to think about.
Sure. Well, the one thing that I think a lot of people just don't understand is because a lot of times when it comes to safety stuff, like, oh, I went over my 14 hours or, oh, I didn't put the shipping documents in the ELD, it's those little things. And they go, okay, nothing happened, got away with it. Cool. Whatever. They don't think long-term though. Like as a safety guy, I always think worst case scenario with stuff like that. So like if you are messing up your logs just once a week, a lot of guys would be like, okay, that's just once a week, whatever. But here's the kicker. If you get into an accident and it's completely your fault and you have a history of like having bad logs that lawyers will go back and look at, then you're going to be in pretty big trouble. And there's really nothing that we can do to help you out with that. That's just you were doing that. And so then the lawyers will come to us and say, why was this guy on the road? He obviously once a week he had an hours of service violation. Why didn't you coach him? Why didn't you tell him that was wrong? Why did you let this happen? And, there's been case after case of that kind of stuff of guys that weren't on the road. Or, one of the things that I've kind of surprisingly had to talk to a lot of people about is like med cards. like they're like, oh yeah, my med card expired. I'll get one next weekend. Like, no, dude. Like if you get into an accident, you don't have a med card. Like you're going to be possibly going to jail if like something bad happens in that. Like you cannot. And I never understood why drivers would be so lax when it comes to like expiration dates on their CDLs and med cards. Like that is your way of living. Okay, that's how you make money. If you let this stuff lapse, you don't get a job anymore, dude, unless you work somewhere else. So like, it's just that we're not trying to be, sticklers on anything per se. I mean, kind of, but it's really for your benefit. Like like I said, that's what my approach is when I talk to drivers, is saying, look, I am trying to help you so that you can continue to drive and be successful doing it. If you are skipping stuff or you're just being lax on things, then you don't get to have a job with us anymore. And, truck driving, there's, I understand there's pay, whatever, and we're not going to get into all that. So, but it's a good job. If you're a good driver with a good company, it's a good paying job. So I'm just trying to help you guys keep that. Now, when it comes to like, yeah, if you're talking about like, what's the big violations that are out there? Speed is like the number one violation. You look at any chart going back to, I don't know, when they started making them, speed is always at the top. Guys are they're speeding. And I get it, because like driving through West Texas or whatever, yeah, you're going to want to go fast and whatever, or you're driving through a city and traffic's going 75 miles an hour. But again, it goes back to, you're in a much bigger truck that takes a lot longer to slow down. So you got to just watch it. But speed is always going to be the biggest one. And then drivers just not understanding their hours of service, how they work. They're trying to, or the other thing is PC. A lot of guys think, well, if I PC and I just go to a truck stop, like I just had a conversation with the driver last week of I said, hey, you drove 150 miles on PC overnight. Like, what was your deal? He's like, oh, I was going to the TA because I got points at the TA. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but nobody is going to allow that if you get stopped. Because I looked at the map. You went from this town to this town. There were 7 towns in between, and I counted 4 loves in between there. I don't care if you have points at the TA. Like, you have to stop at the closest safe haven. And it's just things like that, and a lot of guys will say, well, they never caught me before. Or I got with an officer and they didn't stop me for that, and, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, okay, but all this is kind of up to their discretion. Like, I've talked to DOT officers, and all violations and stuff like that, it's kind of up to them. So if an officer just doesn't want to do the paperwork that night, yeah, he'll let you scoot on by. But if you got an officer that's having a bad day and he's like, they got to make a quota or something, and he's going to take it out of you, like, they could throw the book at you, man. And like, if you are PCing when you shouldn't, they can get that. And here's the other thing is, there's no vehicle on the road that is 100% compliant. I mean, as far as like maintenance and stuff like that, there's always going to be something wrong. Now, usually DOT officers won't check it too much, but if they see that you have HOS violations, your truck is a filthy mess, then all of a sudden you might start looking at some other stuff, and all of a sudden you might have more violations compounding. And if you're a jerk to them too, that's why I always say, especially during like CVSA weeks like this, like, be nice. You would not believe how much, I don't want to say get away with, but you would not believe what a DOT officer will work with you on if you have a clean truck and if you're nice to them. That's the two things. That's not
it's amazing that you're saying that, because this is exactly what Chris and I both were saying last week when we were trying to prep people for CVSA week. We talked about running a clean truck and trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have crap spilled all over the side of your tanker. Don't have, that first glance, you don't want to give them any reason to think there might be something more for them to find. Well, your dash. Get the food. Have you seen pictures probably of some of the guys' trucks? It's like, it looks like a garbage can exploded and everything landed on the front of their dash. Papers, pop bottles, chip bags, everything. And it's, if you're not taking care of your house, here's a question here. Good stuff, guys, on the speeding and PC topic. Where does distracted driving, texting and driving stack up as a common issue?
It's getting up there. Yeah, a lot of drivers get caught with that cell phone in their hands, and cops are getting better technology to see when you have that cell phone in your hand. I can't stress it enough that you can't have the now. You can't have the cell phone in your hand, but I understand that dispatch likes to call a lot. I highly recommend all my guys to get a really good Bluetooth receiver and get to understand it before you get on the road. Because I've had that issue too, where one of our drivers I was watching one time, he was fumbling with his phone because his Bluetooth wasn't working because he had just gotten it, really hadn't figured it out yet. So he's trying to do this, and of course there's the cop right there, so he got busted on that. So yeah, there's distracted driving is climbing up there. It really is. And
well, just look at what you see from the four-wheelers that are driving around distracted.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable what you see in those guys. Yeah, they're texting. I saw a guy reading the book. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's getting out of hand here. And I'm all for freedom and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like they're probably going to start. I mean, they already got laws against it, but I have a bad feeling that they're really going to start hammering down on that. But when it comes to semi trucks, yeah, you can't have the cell phone, guys. You got to put it down. And dispatch operations needs to understand too that there are times when a driver can't answer a call. Okay, it's just like I've worked at dispatchers. Oh, you didn't answer. Try again. Didn't answer. Try again. Like, leave them alone. Okay, they're obviously driving. We have the technology.
Yeah, you should be able to see.
Yeah,
you should be able to see that they're moving, and that's right.
And I remember that drivers that here's the deal. I'll call you twice when I was doing operations. I'll call you twice if I need you to answer. Like if I call you and you don't answer and I don't call back, just get back to me when you can. If I call you back a second time right away, that means next place you should probably stop because your load might have changed. You might have to go somewhere else. So that was always kind of my system with drivers. But that's another thing between drivers and operations. Figure out that system so that you can have that working relationship, so you're not bugging each other and potentially putting your driver in a bad situation.
What does Paul have to say here? One that always has me scratching my head is dude with bare feet and foot propped up on door just cruising down the road. Paul, have you seen that in semi trucks too, or are you talking about just the cars out there? Bare feet and foot propped up on door just cruising.
I've seen both.
Yeah. That's that new yoga trucking.
Have you ever seen the movie? Yeah, have you ever seen the movie? Was it Death Trap? Quentin Tarantino made it. There's a scene with the lady with her leg out the window, and it doesn't end well.
Oh yeah. Well, if it's a Tarantino movie, I could guess what happened to that leg.
Yeah.
So very, very common in Volvo drivers.
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
That's good, Tom. Oh, Paul likes that movie. So, Paul, you know what happens to that leg.
It doesn't end well.
I'm a Pulp Fiction guy. Big Pulp Fiction fan.
Really?
That was a Tarantino, right?
Oh yeah. Yep, that's Tarantino. Yep. It's not politically correct to say, but the Kill Bill saga was very good, I thought. You have to watch both of them back to back. One is good. Two does not stand on its own, but if you watch them back to back, it's gruesome. Probably shouldn't watch it, but it was entertaining.
Well, if you guys didn't learn anything, listen to Sam talk about safety tonight. At least you learned a couple things about movies, and the next time you're doing a 34, you can watch Kill Bill 1 and 2 back to back to get the premium experience. But yeah, I do appreciate going back to you saying just, being friendly to those officers when they are going to do a DOT on the truck, making sure that it looks clean. Don't give them any reason to dig any more than they have to. Well, hey, Sam, thanks so much for being on here today.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
That's pretty wild that I know your sister, and I can't quite get over that.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, one of the things I'd like to do, we did a fun thing at the office last week. I made a Jeopardy game, and it was Autumn Jeopardy Safety Edition. And so we had 5 categories. One of them was booze clues. So that was all about, and Casey Jones, you better watch your speed gauge was a category. we had there was one on the FMCSA. But
Yep.
if I can figure out how to do it, it would be fun to have you and our safety director and maybe another safety guy on, and we could do a little competition among the three of you guys or something.
Bring it on.
Break it up. Well, hey, next time you're stopping to visit your sister, there's a good brewery in town. We'll grab a beer and a burger. It'd be good to meet you.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right, Sam. Have a great night. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you. Everybody else that's listening, thank you for tuning in tonight to the Autumn Transport Podcast. Wherever you're at, we appreciate you and the hard work that you do. Drive safe until we talk to you again. Have a good night.